So, yeah, the Big Apple's first lady is headed to the Middle East without a taxpayer-funded police escort. And it comes after sort of a high-profile back and forth between the mayor and the NYPD. A police spokesperson says, quote, the NYPD does not send officers to countries with level 4 travel advisories for discretionary reasons not linked to investigative work. Earlier in the week, a source told the New York Post that the First Lady had requested the escort.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So the wife of Zohran Mamdani, Dawaji, is going to the Middle East on a trip to Syria and Lebanon. And they're demanding that the NYPD provide security funded by taxpayers. And the NYPD, they're refusing to provide security. And Zohran Mamdani and Dawaji, they're fuming over this decision. And that is not the only thing that we're going to be covering today, because we also have a socialist up in Wisconsin that lost the primary, and mainstream media, they're being forced to admit that they were wrong. But let us start right here with this reporting explaining exactly what's going on with this trip and how the NYPD is pushing back.
A police spokesperson says, quote, the NYPD does not send officers to countries with level 4 travel advisories for discretionary reasons not linked to investigative work. Earlier in the week, a source told the New York Post that the First Lady had requested the escort. And a spokesperson for the mayor's office had confirmed that police would, in fact, join her. They even issued this statement saying the detail would join her on the trip per the NYPD's strong recommendation. That might be because both countries on her itinerary happen to be on the State Department's do not travel list because of security concerns. However, yesterday, after the NYPD denied those plans, Mayor Mamdani blamed the back and forth on a miscommunication.
There was a miscommunication. She hasn't yet taken this trip, and when she takes this trip, it will be without any NYPD detail.
So that clarifies that point.
Yes.
As usual, Mamdani is lying, because what he's trying to do, he's trying to distract from the fact that his office was trying to force the NYPD to provide security for his wife, which is why Mamdani is saying that this is a miscommunication error, to distract from the whole situation. And to show you exactly what I'm talking about, here we have the reporting explaining that a source familiar with the security details said that the First Lady, whom the mayor has described as a private person, requested the escort, and Mamdani's office had confirmed she would be accompanied by city cops. So clearly this was not a miscommunication, because according to Mamdani's spokesperson, upon the strong recommendation of the NYPD, the First Lady's security detail will be joining her when she travels to visit family in Syria and Lebanon. And that is a security detail that's been provided by the NYPD. And the question is, why are they trying to force the NYPD to pay for a private trip overseas, especially when you consider the fact that Zohran Mamdani and the rest of them, they love to scream, defund the police. And here we have a councilwoman from out of New York, Vicky Palladino, on that very same point. Watch this.
Why are we talking about Lebanon and Syria with the First Lady of New York? Why is she going? Is it really to visit family?
Oh, I'm sure it is to visit family. She mentioned this months ago, that she wasn't going to be here for 9/11. But I never expected her to think that she was going to get a security detail from the NYPD. You know, we could run the gamut, taxpayer dollars. Her husband hates the cops. They wants to defund them. She can't stand the police. She doesn't consider herself an American. She considers herself Syrian. Syria right now is at a level 4 restricted area. That is a danger to our cops. So we could run the whole gamut. Why is she going? You know, for the guy over here, her husband, our so-called mayor, to be saying how he wants to be here on 9/11, but his wife isn't going to be here. This is just par for the course about whom Zohran is and who his lovely bride is. I mean, she's pathetic.
So one small correction to make, this trip is taking place September 20th, which is after 9/11. But it does not distract from the fact that Mamdani wants to force the NYPD to pay for this trip for Dawaji, for his wife, to travel overseas to Syria and Lebanon, especially when it's a private trip. And even if it was a public trip, we still shouldn't pay for it. And to make matters worse for Zohran Mamdani, because he has suffered a lot of setbacks recently, And regarding his PITA-tier tax, a judge blocked it because of his disastrous rollout. Watch this, please.
Important to note that ruling the Mamdani administration made a big mistake with the rollout of this PITA-tier tax by putting the burden on the taxpayers here. So Mayor Mamdani had promised this tax would target the rich. He rolled out all of those videos saying to check your mail. Well, it was supposed to only impact people who have multi-million-dollar second homes in New York City, but that's not what happened. So 3 New York City homeowners sued, challenging the city's rollout of this tax, saying that their primary homes were on this list. And the judge, who, as I mentioned, is a Democrat, ruled in their favor and told the city to remove the list of the addresses and names that were posted online, telling the city it should have done the work to find what homeowners actually qualified, not just putting everyone on the list and saying, prove you don't owe the money. Their attorney spoke yesterday outside of court and said the judge protected thousands of New Yorkers.
The Mamdani administration botched this rollout, sent thousands of letters to people who live in their own homes and never should have received a letter suggesting they may be subject to the surcharge.
It is clear that you'll only have things like this when you have someone that's incompetent that's running a government, because instead of essentially doing the work to figure out who qualifies for this tax, even though I disagree with it, they just put a whole list out there and told another department like, hey, you guys figured it out, after doxing everyone in the city. And now let us talk about exactly what happened up there in Wisconsin, because you have this socialist who lost the primary last night, Socialist Hong, to Crowley, who's an establishment Democrat. And the mainstream media, they got it so wrong, and they're realizing how much they got it wrong, because Crowley, he actually dropped out of the race and came back to win the primary.
I know we've been talking about this, but it's just worth restating that most polls headed into Election Day showed Democratic Socialist Francesca Hung with a very safe double-digit lead in the Wisconsin gubernatorial. But what do you think this is saying right now about the electorate? Let me start with you, Eugene.
I think part of it is, I think it's more about us in the media that cover these things. Is we chase often what is the juiciest story that we can tell? What's the clearest story that we can tell about this election? What's the clearest story we can tell about this primary? Instead of sometimes just like letting the voters tell us what it is. What we heard from Will McDuffie on the ground is that like some people weren't interested in Francesca Hong to vote for. Just because someone goes to a rally does not mean they're going to vote for that person on Tuesday, right? It doesn't mean that they are going to actually think that person can be electable. And so we have to do a better job, as well, I think we do great here in MS, but like the larger media ecosystem, in making sure that when we're telling the stories, we're telling all the stories. The exciting part of Francesca Hong is like, oh, out of nowhere, but then maybe that's not the story of tonight.
This is the reason why you got to get out there and you got to vote. You cannot listen to polls. I mean, you can look at polls, but you cannot have polls have you make a decision. You cannot listen to the mainstream media, because Francesca Hong, they had her leading by double digits. And Crowley, he actually dropped out of the race and came back to beat her, even though it wasn't by a lot. But if they had listened to the polls and listened to mainstream media, then Francesca Hong, she would have run away with this whole thing. And it's not just Francesca Hong, because you also have this socialist up there in Michigan, Abdul Al-Sayed, and it was the same thing. And here we have a reporting on that as well.
Really, the polling is off. They've been giving a lot of momentum to progressives. You know, if you think about Abdul Al-Sayed and his election, they were thinking that it was going to be a blowout. It was very tight. This is neck and neck. What is this telling us? This is telling us that, first of all, the Democratic base is very divided, that progressives don't have the momentum that they have been billing themselves as having. And it also tells us, I don't know who these people are talking to when they're polling.
And it's not just Democrats. Don't forget, we saw this in the Texas Senate race too. They said Paxton, most of them showed Paxton up maybe 5 points, 10 points. He won by something like 28, 29 points.
I'm happy to see that mainstream media, they're covering this, because the polls these days, they've been really, really off for some weirdly odd reason. And Francesca Hong, she's not the greatest candidate. Let's just say that.
Thanksgiving is also a time that's incredibly painful for many people in our communities.
My favorite holiday is Thanksgiving, because I love
have it.
Yep. I don't want to cancel it. I actually love it.
And that brings us to the end of this video. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also, please consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.